What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Planet Soccer Podcast. Dylan has no idea what we're talking about today.
Literally zero, and I'm terrified.
Zero idea.
I was told I had to wear Newcastle, and you're not wearing Spurs. Yeah. So is it like a joke at like non-European?
No, it's no joke. It's no. Hey, we're not in Europe right now either. Shout out to AC Milan.
No.
Or shout out to Antonio Conte, subbing in a defender when we needed a goal. Down 1, down to 10 men. Anyways, there's also a reason I didn't give Dylan any time to prepare for this. And well, there's two reasons. One, because I thought of doing this episode this afternoon. And two, because I thought it's probably a good one to do where he has no preparation time because he has a vast amount of knowledge in his head. And that dude can talk. So if he does research, it's just going to go on and on and on and on and on. Dylan, I was thinking this week, and us at Planet Soccer, we said from the beginning, we're not just going to do recaps. And for the most part, we've done other things, but that's what we've done. And I'll be straight up with you and with y'all watching. I've just gotten bored of them. And,
our viewer count tells me other people have gotten bored too.
Yeah. So I was talking to a coworker actually this week, and he's like, soccer is so popular worldwide, or there are like a lot of channels out there like y'all that do, Champions League recap and talk about the Premier League. And I'm like, yeah. Literally thousands. Yeah. And so I started thinking, and I'm like, okay, let's just not do that anymore. We will, if there's something to talk about in the Premier League, we will. But I think our most fun episodes and our best episodes are just either ad lib or prepared, but just not as structured. And Dylan, today we're going to talk winter is coming, the Newcastle rebuild.
All right.
We're doing it today. We're talking the Newcastle Takeover, right. The Newcastle rebuild, how the North will be won again, and how they will take over Europe.
All right. Before we get too far, we don't have to win the North. We're the only thing even remotely relevant in the North.
Well, I just wanted to make a pop culture reference. So
I'm just throwing it out there. There is nothing even close to as relevant.
I mean, for us, Manchester's is the North as well. So
okay,
it's northern England. If you made a north-south 11,
sure, yeah, you would have to include them because they're the That's fair. All right.
So, Dylan, I had thought about texting you. Hey, how good do you feel on a scale of 1 to 10 today? Because I want you to be like ready to talk and ready to talk about it. And I figured it's something you can talk about without. You can pull up tabs or whatever to do your research, but you obviously have followed all of this from the beginning. Tell us about what is going on in soccer and how Newcastle is now at the forefront of that, how they're doing it differently, how it's going to happen, and where you see it going. Give us a precursor, all of that.
So, all right, as far as how it's different, Newcastle fans...
Tell us what it is first.
I was going to say, Newcastle fans, like it or not, it's different because it is the absolute closest we have been in England to a state-owned club. For those of you that don't know,
no, it's a straight-up state-owned club, yeah.
Closest we've been. So, and now there's litigation in U.S. courts, and I'll get into all of that without going too breathy here. But
I'm just going to sit back and drink on this episode.
For those of you that don't know, October of 21, no.
Last
October.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Yes.
It started several years ago, I feel like. Shout out to Daniel Levy for taking
it had been in the works for multiple years. Saudi Arabia's Public Investment Fund, which is
basically the New York Stock Exchange of Saudi Arabia.
Pretty decent way to put it. Really wanted to purchase an English club. Really wanted to do so wisely, a club that they felt they could build and had a good enough following that could create revenue if they got good. So they were intentionally pricing themselves out of Big Sixes, the Spurs, the Uniteds, the Liverpools that are all up for sale now because they do, at the end of the day, see it mainly as an investment. And yes, you can talk about...
So stop right there. Dylan, I'm sorry. There's going to be several times during this episode where I interrupt you, and I just want to focus on one thing. So that's different in this case, which is good for you guys because so many other state-owned clubs have purchased clubs with absolutely no intention for them to be investments.
Correct.
They've bought the PSGs of the world. There's not a whole lot further PSG could go when Qatar came in. What they wanted to do, and what what Saudi Arabia, the public investment fund, what they wanted to do in England was treated as an investment, which is a huge difference. And I can't emphasize that enough.
And rightfully so, most likely rightfully so. A lot of people are still calling it a sport washing attempt. And I certainly believe that is part of it. They want to get people to associate Saudi Arabia in different parts of the world with being a positive thing. And they're certainly been doing that in the northeast of England as people have.
And you see that with what they're doing with the Saudi League also.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Messi being an ambassador.
Messi being an ambassador, bringing Cristiano in. Like they're really trying to use sports to paint Saudi Arabia in a positive light when do your research if you don't know the human rights atrocities that have and continue to take place in Saudi Arabia. I'm not blind to them. I somewhat try and separate them, somewhat see Newcastle as potentially being an avenue of not an overhaul of their culture by any means, but maybe it can start a conversation. But the sports washing thing is a whole other topic that we could do a whole episode on. So from a football perspective, they look at it as an investment. They wanted to wisely purchase a club and then put millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars into that club to see
it's
a
return.
It's
going to be billions eventually.
Exactly. To see a return on that investment. Yeah. So they will be spending a lot of money up front, but with the intentions of, because they know it is, as I said at the beginning, the only real true successful club in Northern England. They see it as a very good expansion project, investment project. Yes, you have Sunderland who has history, but Sunderland is the scum of England. So they're irrelevant.
Okay, I'll pop in and say Sunderland's on the way back up. Newcastle's absolutely the Goliath of the North. Sunderland has potential as well, though. They're not in the Premier League right now.
And so, they were looking like they were getting promoted, but they've kind of the wheels have fallen off a little. But it wasn't initially and intentionally done that they didn't buy one of the big sixes, but they bought a club with lots of history. A passionate fan base.
Let's stop right there and tell me why Newcastle is the right choice for them. I agree that it is. But say our American audience. So why is Newcastle?
There's a lot of different reasons. They, from a footballing perspective, especially in the world of the regulations that have been put into place on spending. There are a lot of bad things.
Referencing financial fair play.
FFP. There's a lot of things Mike Ashley did that at the time were horrible. He was 100% focused on revenue, no debt to the club. And as a fan, that was extremely frustrating. But as a future investor, that makes it a really attractive project because you already kind of have a leg up in that financial fair play because you're not having to balance previous debts. You're working off of profit, albeit very tiny. We're talking nickels and dimes compared to the big six.
But not many clubs break even.
Right, exactly. So that made it a very attractive investment opportunity because they knew they didn't have to spend 3 or 4 years balancing books. Books were balanced. We can come in and splash cash and turn this around quickly. And as an investor, at its core of an investment, the quicker you can see returns, the better. So that made Newcastle very attractive.
A stadium with no naming rights as of that,
so
which is where probably the majority of really just any sports franchise in the world, the majority of their revenue will come from that stadium rights.
And in soccer, jersey sponsorship rights are huge. And one of the worst, financially worst sponsors in all of English, all of the Premier League or all of the semi-big clubs in the Premier League. An absolutely atrociously low amount of money is being brought in. So there's a lot of opportunities to improve outside investments as well into the club, which then in turn balances financial fair play books better. And it was the perfect storm of a rabid fan base. Newcastle, good, bad, or otherwise, as a team, has always been known to have one of the better fan bases in England. One of the larger stadiums for a club outside of the Big Six, St. James's Park, can hold 60,000 plus, which you don't normally see from, let's be honest, we were a mid-table yo-yo team since Shearer retired. but had the stadium that didn't necessarily need large investment into it as far as expansion. Obviously, it needed updating, but as far as like the
Yeah.
big ticket items, so there are a lot of things in place at Newcastle that were good enough that with a little bit of money and a little bit of like actual backing of the club that the club hadn't seen since Mike Ashley took over, it would explode in the Northeast, and then in turn, the plan obviously be explode globally. They have
Yeah.
plans to come to the U.S. They've gone to Saudi Arabia. They are trying to expand that global brand, and we've seen how much of
That's
an
a really
impact that has.
interesting. Yeah, that whole global expansion of premier teams and La Liga, the Barcelonas and Madrids of the world. Tottenham's seen it a lot, having Heung-min Son in South Korea, which obviously has a huge population. They are one of the most followed soccer TikTok accounts solely because they have such a massive Korea following for Sonny. And that in turn brings in so much, not the TikTok following, but just that global
Exposure.
fan base in turn, yes, brings in so much revenue. And it's such a key that I think Premier League clubs especially are now focusing in on, whether that be on TV rights deals to broadcast globally. We have very easy access, sometimes easier access to the Premier League than people in England do.
In most cases,
so yeah, in most cases. So that's that whole global the globalization of your club brand is massive.
Yeah, and it's vital to that return on investment. Like seeing them plan those trips to Saudi Arabia is super intentional. Seeing them, I don't think they've officially announced, but it's been pretty much announced that they'll be coming to the U.S. this summer. Like all of that is extremely intentional. For your maybe more casual soccer fans in the U.S., it was one of the appeals to me to Newcastle when I was, adopting a side is I didn't want to be a Man U fan. I didn't want to be a City fan. Yeah. I wanted to pick a team that had history, had success, could have potential for success, but in the here and now wasn't.
But didn't know that they were going to have the richest entity in the world take over.
But now you have that potential where, it's still little old Newcastle to an extent.
Yeah.
Like on the pitch, we're kind of still little old Newcastle. And especially
and I feel like
lately.
Newcastle's fan base is so just ratchet. Like the typical English geezer fan base, it will always still be like that mom and pop shop deal.
Yeah, I mean, because it is it's a different culture. It's not.
Yeah,
I can't believe I'm going to say the flash of Manchester because it's not the flashiest city in the world, but the flash that the Manchester clubs bring, or the flash of London and everything that city brings. Yeah. Like, I mean, I haven't been there yet. I'm going in May, but I know from all of my research and friends that I've met through Newcastle, it's not. I mean, we got great bridges, got great nightlife, but it's not bridges, London. Baby. It's not like this sex appeal that some of those English clubs bring. So it will always still kind of be slightly that underdog. Obviously, as you said, we have the richest owners in the world. I can't play that underdog card for long. But even when the money comes, it'll be like, wow, it's cool that it happened to them. It's like how I feel a lot of NFL fans for our American audience will kind of feel about the Lions if and when they get good. It's like, oh, they're kind of cute. They got good history. They've been so bad in most of our lives. Like, I hope they do well. And when they do, that's great. And like, I feel like there's a lot of parallels to Newcastle, and you can find other sports teams and other leagues with that parallel of fan base and passion, but zero success lately. So there is that appeal to newer fans, and I think that's why they're trying to break into the U.S. I'm convinced they're going to sign Pulisic half for that tour and half for on the field. Like I think there's a lot of reasons it does make sense to if a goal is to expand into the U.S., and it does seem like that is a priority for Newcastle. Is there anything?
I don't know if you can hear that. There's a plane going over my apartment right. I have my balcony door open, so I don't know if y'all can hear that. But
is there anything non-football related or business related you want me to touch on or cover before I kind of jump into the football side of the rebuild?
So I'm just going to go quick timeline of events for everybody real fast. The Saudi Leg takeover basically had its origins in April of 2020. It's when essentially it was widely reported that a public consortium was looking to take over Newcastle. There had been rumors, like you said, that they were looking at teams to take over previously. This thing spent like 2 years in courts, in the House of Parliament. It was fought by other owners, other chairmen, and eventually, like you said,
all of the big six.
All of the big six,
other than City.
And I think
other than City, because City went, wait, no, that'd be a little hypocritical of us because we were you 10 years ago.
Yeah. So technically, on October 7th, 2021, the group announced that they had publicly taken over Newcastle, but it still wasn't official because there were still some. There ended up being another year of essentially arguments. Like you said, it's worth mentioning in October of 21, that's when Eddie Howe, the manager, was appointed. So I'm sure you'll talk about Eddie a lot. But basically, this has all really come about in the last 2.5, 3-ish years. That's kind of the timeline, very short, very brief. Go ahead and get into the on-the-field stuff because that's really where the money will be generated and really spent.
So the biggest difference, yes.
Are y'all ahead of schedule right now?
We'll see.
Yeah.
Going into the World Cup, going into the January window, absolutely. Where we're at today on March 9th is probably pretty close to where I expected at the start of the season.
Well, you're in your valley of the season right now.
And so
on the form table, you aren't doing so hot. That happens.
It could rebound. It could level out. It could. So, right now, exactly where we're at in the table for year 1.5-ish of the takeover, about where I would expect to be. Because no doubt, we have spent money. For me, though, the biggest difference, and at the time of takeover, it, in my opinion, took too long because I think we had 2 or 3 matches under Bruce after the takeover. Understandable. You got to get all your people in place to make decisions and actually sign contracts. But I think for Newcastle fans, we're like, all right, not being unrealistic, but if we're actually trying to do this thing, why the hell is Steve Bruce still here? You don't like Conte ball. Try watching Bruce ball for multiple years.
God, you know what? I've had my timeline completely screwed up. It has, we're going on year 2.
Yes. Yeah.
They actually took over in 2021.
Yes.
There wasn't another year of
waiting. No.
Dang.
No, yeah.
Time flies.
I know. We're 1.5 years into this.
Man.
So Steve Bruce was replaced. Steve Bruce, for those of you that don't know, plays probably the most boring brand of football, not known for player development, super stale manager. Kept Newcastle up for a couple of years when relegation seemed inevitable, so tip of the cap to that. But that's just the type of manager he was. He was a let's not get relegated, not a let's win.
Yeah.
And at the time of the takeover, obviously the first priority then is at that point in the time was to stay up. However, long-term goals are obviously to win and start making money if you're the PIF, which I will from here on be referring them to them as PIF and not Saudi Arabia, because there is a distinction, allegedly.
Reed, remember to put a ding and then PIF equals
but Steve Bruce was replaced a couple matches after the takeover by Eddie Howe. Another guy who, frankly, his biggest accomplishments were avoiding relegation and gaining promotion. So for a lot of Newcastle fans at the time, myself being one of them, I was a little skeptical. If we have all of this money, if we're supposed to be this up-and-coming powerhouse, why the hell are we hiring Eddie Howe when the names that were floated around were much more attractive? And we've seen Villa hire one of them since, and he's had success at Villa, so good on him and good on Villa. But
they've had flashes.
At the time, it was a little bit of a head-scratcher, but it was one of those, hey, we don't know what to do with ourselves. Anybody's better than Bruce. I knew I liked Howe better than Bruce, so it was like, most of the Newcastle fan base, while we were scratching our heads, we're like, all right, all in on Eddie Howe. And from there, we were 2 months away from relegation not even being in the thought of our mind anymore. By mid-January, after a very solid November, December with the players we already had, and that's where some of the arguments about, they bought their way to safety. Yes, money played a role. But the ship started to turn around really in late November, early December. We started to see more draws instead of losses, slowly more wins instead of draws. And then January
now back to all draws and nothing else.
And then the January window hit, and that's where things got really fun as a fan. I don't think I have ever spent so much time in my life refreshing Twitter as I did the
We need
month.
the screen time. We need your screen
Dude,
time.
I should have had that pulled up.
I know.
I'll put it in the comments or something. I'll go back and look if I
Yeah.
can still find it. But I was nonstop refreshing Twitter in January of 22, and just the change of excitement and thoughts around the club. I mean, the joke is the previous transfer window couldn't even afford $1 million loan. Allegedly, couldn't even afford $1 million loan fee for Hamza Shorty. We weren't a team that was willing to spend money because of the ownership group. And then the first signing we have is Kieran Trippier, who obviously is probably past his time. You've had some experience with him. One of the best right backs in the world at the time. Had a rough couple of months, but arguably England's best right back, started for England in this last World Cup at times. And that's the first signing we had. Very good value. There was a lot of speculation from a lot of opposing fans. Newcastle's going to go splash money and spend $500 million, pretty much what Chelsea's doing now. People were joking that that's what Newcastle was going to do, but Trippier signed for less than $15 million and came in as a leader, as a captain. And I think that was when it was all super real to me. Yes, the takeover was great. Yes, getting rid of Steve Bruce was fantastic. But when you have a guy with the cachet playing Champions League football at Atletico Madrid, taking a chance, and not for money, because he's under 150,000 in wages, weekly wages. Like, it wasn't just a mercenary. We weren't just paying $500,000 for somebody. It was somebody who actually believed in the project, wanted the project, came along, and somebody with that name and cachet was remarkable. He's the first Newcastle player jersey that I purchased after the takeover because of that.
The first signing. Yeah,
because
first signing of the takeover.
And I firmly believe there could have been more talented players we signed first, but I truly believe that leadership, that name, putting the back half of their career behind Newcastle sent a message to any other potential signing. I don't think we get Bruno without Trippier. Not that Trippier talked to Bruno, but it's just that signal of intent that, like, this is a real project that you can actually get behind. They're not going to go too fast, too soon. It's like an actual build and something that they really wanted to get behind. And I think that went a long way for me. That's why I believe Trippier was kind of the catalyst. And then you bring in other guys like your Brunos, and obviously the Chris Wood signing gets made fun of, but that pulled a player away from a relegation rival, ended up only losing 10 million.
I want to go back and find your tweets about the Chris Wood signing. I don't remember how you reacted to it. I think you were just excited that money was being spent.
I'm fairly certain. I went like, all right, well, we have so much money that we just legitimately stole the best striker from a relegation rival. Like, that's awesome. Watched 2 games of Chris Wood, and I went, that was a lot of money on Chris Wood. But like at the time, it was just so exciting that there was something to believe in. The Bruno signing, pulling him out from under Arsenal, not only based on wages. It's been reported since that the wage structure was almost identical, and Bruno legitimately chose Newcastle. I think for him and his career at the time, it made a lot of sense. I don't think he would be where he is right now on a world stage or an English stage if he was at Arsenal, and that's no gripe against Arsenal. I just don't know if he's playing 90 minutes every game that he isn't suspended or injured, and he
wouldn't be.
He's had the chance to show that at Newcastle, so I hope it's a guy we can hold on.
Not only be the guy, not only be a starter, but he's guy. Like the guy. Yeah. He's the engine. Yeah. Almost to a fault, you know, like and he has to do too much,
and that's where and I don't want to fast forward too much through the summer, but that's kind of where we're at. Sure. We're at now, and then obviously very, very successful post transfer window last year. Really put a lot of belief, and I think that's when people kind of started to internally expedite the clock a little bit. When we saw how successful, I mean, I think. Fast forward to pre-World Cup, but I think for the calendar year of 2022, I believe and I didn't do research on this before, but I believe we finished second or third in total points of Premier League sides in the calendar year of 2022. Obviously, it spans two separate seasons, but obviously there were signings in the summer. But like things really expedited at that second half of the 21-22 season, knocking off a side like Arsenal, who it was the biggest game of the year for them. It was
gorgeous.
You're welcome. It was an incredible finish to the season, and I think put some belief into the ownership that they could expedite it by a year or two. And then we saw quite a bit of money being spent. Not as much as most people expected, but quite a bit of money being spent in the summer. Signing Target on an actual signing instead of a loan. Obviously, signing Sven Botman, who has become one of the premier center backs and arguably part of the best center back pairing. I don't think him and Fabian Schär have lost a match together since they've played, or when they both play together. Bruno as well this season in 22 until the City game. I don't believe he had lost a start in the Premier League either. So we've had certainly some great signings. But when you look at some of the guys that are still around, because I believe, off the top of my head, I believe only half of our roster is new signings. So you have Fabian Schär, who has had a complete resurgence under Eddie. You've had, even Longstaff, as much as he drives me nuts sometimes. Like, he is a serviceable 7 through 12 starter, 7 through 12 in the table starter under Howe.
Yeah.
Is he going to
So
be?
let's go ahead and finish your thought.
Yeah. Is he going to be the guy to like carry us to Europe like a Mickey Almiron? No, but like that's where our success hasn't just been about the money spent, because we have seen a resurgence of Miggy. We have seen a resurgence of Longstaff.
We did see a resurgence of Miggy. It's kind of gone away a little bit.
Yeah, we had. We'll go past that. We had seen a resurgence, but like there always seems to be at least one player that was there under Bruce, that's there under Howe now at any given time, that is far outperforming where they used to be. And part of that is more talent around you also makes you better. Yeah. No doubt about it. And I think we're starting to see a little bit more now that may have been the case, and less a little of Eddie, as we've kind of, as you said, hit our valley in the season. But go ahead with, I think you had a question.
So I just want to put like where we're at in perspective on this. So you guys went into the summer, thinking, okay, maybe you'll be the top spender. Did you expect to be anywhere near the top spenders in England over the summer?
Yeah. Yeah, I expected to be top 3 or 4.
And what did y'all finish third? Is that what y'all were? Or fourth?
I think it was 4th or 5th.
4th or 5th. Okay. So essentially you guys, y'all finished last year, the year you started in a relegation battle. Y'all finished it so well. I had like 90% confidence y'all were going to beat Arsenal in that game, that we needed y'all to make top 4. So y'all finished 2022 really well. Started 2022, 23 very well. Where'd y'all go in at the World Cup? Were y'all third?
I'm pretty sure we finished third. I'm pretty sure we were ahead of you guys.
I think y'all, yeah.
And now we're down to 6th.
Yeah. So basically where we're at now is Newcastle has top 6 starting 11, and probably the top 6 bench as well. 6, 7, 8 bench. It's kind of a coin flip with Brighton, and Brentford's just getting the most out of probably the least talented roster. However, you guys, y'all's catalyst on the field, Bruno. Y'all need to get more out of your attackers. Obviously, I don't know what y'all are in the league scoring wise, but it's not good. Really low. And Eddie Howe, y'all's manager, this is good for Eddie, which y'all are going through right now. This kind of valley.
Growing pains.
I mean, that's the best. Growing pains. That's the best way to put it. So, he was such an electrifying, like the manager bounce y'all had from him. It was a manager bounce, and then it went into just this is
a freight train.
This is actually a freight train.
Yeah.
And people have kind of, it's not like y'all's system was anything crazy. He was just making the right moves at the right time, saying the right things at the right times. So now you sit here like, okay, we're on the doorstep. How do we take the next step? Well, you upgrade your starting 11 in a few places. Like you said, I think y'all center back pairing. I don't know if Schär is the guy moving forward. But I mean, keep him. You don't need a center back.
He's our Jamal. He will in 3 years. He will be what Jamal Lascelles is right now. Like not quite good enough when we have to play him. Well, I hated Lascelles as a starter, but off the bench whenever he's come in or had to start a game because of injuries or suspensions, like just this last week against City, he was arguably our best player on the whole field. Like I see that being where Fabian is 2 years from now when the build is complete and we have that starting 11 competing for titles and trophies.
Yeah.
I see Fabian fitting into that role super nicely. And I think we're doing a good job of kind of building that way. We're not, taking we could sell him for a decent penny this summer. I don't think we will.
And y'all might maximize the value, but that's just if you're going to go splash $80 million on a center back.
Right.
But you don't. The way y'all are at right now, you don't have to spend 50 plus on a center back this summer.
No, not at all. Really it's something you splash the cash 2-3 years from now. And you roll a share for a year or two.
I'd say next summer. You
two summers from now maybe. Yeah, you go splash some cash, and then you sell Lascelles for $10 million, and share fills that Lascelles role. But I that's what I January overall was the players we brought in. It was a little disappointing. I think Anthony Gordon has the potential to fit really, really nicely in this side, just his play style.
But he's for what y'all are looking for, he's a second 11 guy.
Right.
At best.
Right now, he should, and I think for the rest of the season, will be a starting 11. Yeah, I think he's good enough to be a starting 11 winger on a team making a push for Europe, but not at all long term. He's not going to be starting when we're playing in the round of 16 in the Champions League in 3 years. And if he is, that's an amazing signing.
3 guys right now that will.
Right. But he is a guy that is certainly good enough to be part of that process. Or maybe he falls in love and sticks around and is okay coming off the bench or playing those occasional Premier League games or FA Cup games because he just finds a home or whatever the case may be. And I think that's why from the outside it may look a little slower signing an Anthony Gordon and not signing a Neymar was thrown around to Newcastle in January. And if you are playing Football Manager or you're playing FIFA, that can be really tempting, but you can grow too big too fast. And I've said that a couple of times on our other episodes that's one thing. Obviously, I want Champions League for my team. Anybody who says anybody who says they don't is lying to you. But I see a lot of value, and maybe this is just me talking myself into it because we've shit the bed for the last month and a half. But I do see a lot of value in playing Conference League or Europa before playing Champions, learning how to have those European
I will
nights.
Always push back on Conference League, but Europa, absolutely.
Right. I don't want Conference League, but you've said, I think in previous episodes, you would rather miss altogether than play Conference League. Right now where we're at, for Spurs, 100% agree. 100% understand where you're at in your team progression. I would agree. But where we're at right now, any sort of European football on weeknights,
any kind of European nights, is
just going to be important for that build. And it's not going to be sexy enough to keep Bruno for multiple years, but he'd rather be doing that next year, I'm sure, than not playing anything. And I do think some of the worry right now around Newcastle, I'm not as worried as other people, but there have been rumblings about, again, Barcelona or Real Madrid calling Bruno up. There were, Pep and Bruno were kissing each other's rear ends after the City game. So there's always going to be that worry. But I think one of the things I like about the way we've built so far, for the most part, I'm a little worried about Gordon's exit from Everton, but for the most part, I think we've purchased the right people. I think we've purchased people that really do want to be a part of a project, really do believe in the project and believe in that grind and aren't just looking for that kind of immediate gratification and immediate success. So I think overall I've been super pleased with the build. I think we've put a lot of good players and good people in place in the front office and in the dressing room. I think if you asked me, going into the World Cup, would I be okay with sitting in 6th right now? No. But overall, when you actually sit down, put it into perspective, we were in a relegation battle. Well, this time last year we were out of it, but we were in a relegation battle 14 months ago, like deep in a relegation battle. And now we're like somewhat disappointed. We're not looking like we're going to make Champions League. Like that's crazy. And money has been spent, but it hasn't been, we haven't even spent as much in the last, since the takeover as Chelsea has in the last two windows. And we've had, you can throw an
not
extra
even a
window.
Fraction of it.
Like we're spending money. Don't get me wrong. We have money. We are spending money, but it isn't just throwing cash to the wind and seeing what sticks. It does feel like a very quality build. I think there are a lot of similarities to that City build, where the first like two windows, there were certainly some notable players brought in, but it was really that third and fourth window it really started to roll. I do see some similarities where I don't expect a massive summer as far as like flashy names, but January.
Let's get into that. I want to move on to what do the next few years look like for y'all. If you're done talking about like the current, you want to go ahead and get into what's next. This is the what's next portion of our winter is coming. Newcastle is on the rise episode. Summer 2023. I think you go sign one superstar. You got to get a superstar in that while it's time.
They're not going to.
No,
they're not going to. I'll just tell you right now, it's not going to happen. That's not. Okay. That's not like I think the superiest star, like maybe not him, but the superstariest or however you want to word it, person or type of person we'll get is like a James Maddison.
Yeah. Okay. Let me.
Like we're not. I don't.
Superstar is hard to define in soccer.
Yes,
it's hard to define what is a superstar.
I think Neymar when you say superstar. If you think England national team and Maddison counts, I agree. It's time to bring in. It's time
some
to
sort of national team player, like real difference maker. I mean, history in the Premier League sort of deal. I mean, Isak, he was 60 million pounds.
Yeah, broke our record. But he had no history in the Prem. Yeah, no, I do see us. That I do agree in that respect. I would.
Do y'all go challenge Man United for Osimhen?
I don't think so because of the signings we've already made. I do think if you put 60...
So is Maddison y'all's ceiling for the summer? Do you think, or is there kind of a name maybe we haven't heard in there?
Yeah, no, I'm sure there's other bigger names out there, but I think realistic ceiling, like sure, Neymar's arguably for sale. He's coming off an injury, like sure, that's probably technically our ceiling. If we're going full sports wash, throwing cash at the wall to see what sticks, like Neymar's technically our ceiling, but like our realistic ceiling, I would say is more of a Maddison. And if that's considered a superstar, then I say yes, we do need. I say we need somebody Maddison or better. Like Maddison's almost my like floor, if you will. Like if we don't end up with a Maddison or more, I start to worry about keeping the Bruno. Yeah, like did they buy Newcastle because they know if they half try and finish 8th every year, they'll sell it out, be the biggest club in the North, and make money? Like, there's a chance. I don't think everything I've seen tells me that that's the route they're going to go. But, like, if we get less than Maddison as our marquee signing, I start to worry a little bit, I think.
Right, that makes sense. I think Maddison would be a good, 2-year buffer from when you do go get that superstar.
Yeah, Maddison can get you qualified for Champions League as like a secondary midfield, and that seems very unfair to him, but a secondary midfielder to Bruno, he can get you qualified, but he ain't getting you to the quarters. He's just not. I love him. He's one of my favorite players in the Prem, but he's just not getting you to the quarters or the semis. But yeah, I think he's a perfect, and you can still get some value out of him when you sell in the future. And I think he's the perfect signing. I'd be willing to overpay by 10 or 20 minutes. Easy for me to say, it's not my money, but I'd be willing to overpay.
We love saying that. We got to remember it's not our money. Right. Okay, so let's talk Eddie. Well, first I want to ask you, what's y'all's top 3 priorities this summer? Where do you go first? You got to get goal. You got to get goal scoring.
I have to go midfield.
Okay.
I am still a firm believer in Isak. When I have seen him play, I've really liked what he brings to the table.
What's his best position? Is it winger?
No,
'Cause he just doesn't do it for me at striker.
he's a 9 that should be allowed to float out to the left a little bit. Like he's a 9,
kind of like Richarlison.
Yeah, and I see him being him and Madison being very complementary to each other if we were to bring in a Madison. Okay. And you have Gordon out there on the left. Like in my head, see those three with their pace and not Gordon's technical ability, but the technical ability of Isak and Madison and Gordon's pace working really well together, allowing some Isak to kind of move to the left side a little bit and float a little more. So I for me, it would be that like, I still really believe in going after an attacking midfielder. I know there are a lot of people of the belief that you bring in a defensive midfielder.
What is Eddie's system? Sorry, before you go on. What does he play like in the midfield? Or do we still not really know
because he hasn't been able to yet? Like, yeah, he's probably a 4-3-2-1, like technically.
Okay.
But like it's really kind of been hard to tell. It's probably more of a 4-3-3 right now, but like I think ideally he kind of wants to isolate a little bit more, and I think that's why he's played Callum a little bit more, is because Callum typically is better in that like more isolated role. So I think he's kind of trying to see if he can get that out of Callum. But I think a 4-3-3, in my opinion, a 4-3-3 with a midfield of, it can be Big Joe for all I care. If I have Madison and Bruno, Longstaff can play as a third midfielder. I don't give a rat's ass. And then Gordon on a wing, ASM, Pulisic, whoever you want to say, on the other wing, and then an Isak in attack would
go buy Harry Kane from Tottenham.
No, thank you. We can't. I know we can't score goals. I would be livid if we spent more than $25 million on a backup striker, because we just spent a club record on a striker. Like, I'm not ready to give up after one season on a guy who's been hurt. Like, I need to I got to trust my scouting staff and Eddie enough on his scouting. So for me, if you number 3 or top 3 priorities would be an attacking midfielder, a true center midfielder, and then probably a left back. Well, actually, I'm sorry. I put a left back ahead of like a more...
Definitely a left back, yeah, for sure.
I really like Target a lot, but we've barely seen him.
He's one of those guys, like, if you're going to make Champions League...
Yeah, I'm a huge Target guy, but like he's been healthy for 2 weeks, and we're still starting effing Dan Burn out there. Like, is Target that bad in training? Like, I said this...
Bring the Burn, baby.
I said this to you in a text message. Like, Miggy, if he's starting over Gordon and ASM every week, he's got to look like Messi in training,
in practice,
and
training,
and Dan Burn has to look like the best left back ever, and Matt Target has to look like me playing left back out there, because like Matt Target is an actual left back. He played phenomenally last year when we had Burn in the middle with Cher, and I think Burn would be an awesome sub center back. Not that you sub center backs often, but like, I think he would be the perfect guy if you're down a goal late.
You rotate center backs.
Yeah.
So maybe
I don't think you can. I don't think you can right now with us. Like, I don't think you can take apart Botman and Fabian, but...
Well, if y'all play Europe, you're going to have
to. Right. No, so. Yes, right. And you will have
to. That's kind of what I'm referencing.
Yeah. And I think that's where Burn is an asset still. I don't want to get rid of Burn, because he can play left back against a Bournemouth or somebody. Like, he's good enough out there to get by if you have to, type of thing. He's definitely shown that. But yeah, I'd say attacking midfielder, left back, and then I would love like a true central midfielder. I love Joel Linton. He's super fun. He seems like a great guy. So then
what does Bruno play?
Huh?
I feel like Bruno's y'all's true center.
I want him as a 6.
Moving forward. As a 6. Okay.
I want him as a 6. That's like his
flying playmaker.
Yeah, that's his true like most natural position, I think, is that deep lying playmaker. And maybe if we could go out and get a great central or a defending midfielder and
Jude Bellingham, go get Jude Bellingham.
But if we could get like an elite defensive midfield. Like if we had all the money and this was FIFA, and I could go sign
here's what I was
Madison
gonna
and
throw out.
Declan.
Declan Rice. Go after Declan Rice, then Bruno can play that true center.
But then I still want somebody that has a little bit more goal scoring ability in my midfield. That's where I think Madison would fit. Like no budget. Like truly, you did the $1 trillion takeover or whatever it is on FIFA, and you have endless money because there's no financial fair play. I signed Declan and James Madison, and I'll stop after that for all I care. Like, Matt Target can be my left back if I have a midfield of Declan, Bruno, and Madison. But financially, obviously, that's not realistic. I would rather Madison than Declan when price is taken into account. I don't see 100 million. Declan will go for 100 million to City. They'll way overpay for him. It's going to happen. I'm not paying 100 million for Declan.
That guy is not a $100 million player.
He's great. I love him. I absolutely.
I mean, is he though? He's great. Yes, I think he's nowhere near world class in my opinion.
The only reason you could argue
he's a center back, dude. He's a center back is what Declan Rice is. And if you want that as your number 6, that's fine.
He has a little bit more ability than a center back there, but I get what you're saying. He's like a $60 million guy for me. If I could, if I could get him for 60, if I could get him for 70, I wouldn't bat an eyelash. I would do it without a doubt. But even if I could get him at 70, I would rather getting Madison at 50 than Declan at 70 and spending that 20 on a left back. Personally,
because y'all need goal scoring, and Madison will
right, and that's our biggest thing. Like I believe Isak is going to be a 20 goal guy.
Wow. In all comps?
Yeah, like a season 20 goal guy, not like not a 20 and 36. In like Premier League. But I see him as a 20 to 25 all comps guy if we make like a decent enough run.
You're playing like 55 games.
Nothing like. But that is enough if you're getting goal scoring from an attacking midfielder from your wings, and I think we have guys in the fold that can get 10, 15 goals from those other positions, especially if we bring in a Madison. So as much as goal scoring is a need, I don't think the way to answer that need is by signing another striker. I think Isak being our everyday starter, Wilson being that rotational guy, if he's willing to stick around and be a rotational guy.
They both have to stay healthy
perfect.
Is the thing.
Yes.
Yeah. I have two more things for us to talk about. The first one is kind of a short topic, but I think, I look at y'all's winger situation. I think there's one of two guys at City that are going to be expendable. And Phil Foden obviously has a much higher ceiling than the other one, and that's Jack Grealish. I just think he's such a Newcastle scumbag. He would fit in the uniform, in the club, in the system, and I think he would thrive on the left.
Give me a wing pairing of Anthony Gordon and Jack Grealish.
Oh my! Talk about shithousery.
With Bruno and Big Joe in the middle. Oh god!
Oh, that's terrifying. That's like Fight Club on the field right there.
We would instantly become the most hated team. We wouldn't even have to win anything. We would instantly become the most hated team, maybe in Europe. Like if we were playing Europa, nobody would root for us. But at this point, I think
y'all go to Ghent or something and just start a brawl on the field.
I was telling you that I'm at a point where the Liverpool match at Anfield this year when we were pulling all those antics, I was embarrassed. I hated it. It was gross. It was ugly.
It was just a lack of maturity. Yeah, I mean
I'm almost at the point we just got to lean into it. We just got to go get Grealish. And like you said,
it's your thing.
Be a shithouse. Just be a good Everton.
Yeah.
Be an Everton that wins something. Like recent Everton. I know Everton's won more than whatever. But be a last 5 years Everton that actually has success. And I almost think that's where we're going to have to find our success. At the end of the day.
Did you just compare yourself to Everton? I just want to make sure.
Yeah, no, I did. But that's the type of shithousery we pull sometimes. It's we're almost
just you want to make sure nobody wants to play.
Right. And
whether it's for the talent or for the antics.
Eddie said that numerous times. He's we're not here to make friends. We're here to play football. Yeah. At the end of the day, I don't care if you like me. Respect me after the game, respect me before the game, but between the lines, hate me all you want. I'm here to be hated. Yeah. And I almost think taking it a little bit back to Detroit sports, and part of the reason I fell for Newcastle, like it almost have to be the bad boys a little bit of the NBA, but in the Premier League, like you almost have to be that team that's not like, because Newcastle, while we have great bridges and the people are nice, it's still the Northeast of England.
It's like Pittsburgh,
yeah, or it's Detroit. Like you're not gonna get the marquee free agents. Like in Detroit, as a Pistons fan, we're never gonna sign Kevin Durant.
No, that's a really good comp. Yeah, the bad boy Pistons.
Like that's where we're gonna have to find success as Newcastle, I think. And I've come to that realization. I don't love it.
God, we just struck some gold.
I don't love it, but like we have to be the bad boy Pistons if we're going to win championships. We can be a very good 5th through 8th team with Saudi money, hiring some mercenaries here. But if you actually want to go out and win something, you got to become bad. Like you got to become gritty. You got to become nasty. You got to, and I think that's something that in all of European football I really like, is you almost kind of see play styles adopted to countries' personalities or cities' personalities, and you don't get that a ton in American sports. You do some a little bit, like the Lions right now. Dan Campbell are super like Detroit gritty, like let's get after it, or Pittsburgh Steelers teams. But like you don't see that a ton in American sports, but you still see that in Europe, and I think that's where Newcastle almost has to own up to, like, hey, we're the shipbuilders, like we are Northern England. Let's be gritty. Let's be nasty. Let's be disliked. Let's have our Geordie accents and just be true to us. And I don't care if anybody doesn't like us. If we're winning Premier Leagues or qualifying for Champions Leagues, we're doing our thing. And like that's where our success is going to come, not from the FIFA fantasies of signing Mbappe and Haaland. Like that will never, like we will never see a Ballon d'Or at Newcastle.
And guess what? Haaland and Mbappe, neither of them have won a Champions League, so you can do it without those types of players.
Right.
Last thing I want to go on to, Dylan, I'm going to give you some scenarios, and I want you to tell me the year that it's going to happen for you guys.
Okay.
First trophy under the new ownership. Is it next year?
It'll be 25, because next year would be 24. Next year would be 24, so I'm going to go 25. It'll be 2 seasons, and it'll probably be a Carabao.
First Premier League title.
What are we, 23 right now? 28.
Okay. And the big one, first Champions League.
I mean, this is purely non-soccer related for me. My teams don't win actual championships, so I'm going to say not in my lifetime.
It's not happening.
Yeah. I mean,
just for the sake of the exercise, you say Premier League 2028. We'll say Champions League 30.
Sure.
It could happen. You know, I mean,
I don't think it will, and I think for those, like, I see that a city and a club like Newcastle being able to be gritty enough for a year to win a league title, to win a league trophy, or I just don't think a place, again, nothing against the people of Newcastle, I cannot wait to visit, but it is just not sexy enough to bring the Neymars. Not that Neymar is going to necessarily win a Champions League, but like it's not going to bring those sexy names and players that you, at the end of the day, you need those to win Champions Leagues. Like you're not seeing a Leicester City win the Champions League for a reason. Like you just, at some point there's a ceiling, and love it, hate it, feel indifferent.
But that's not to say there isn't parity in soccer. Like I do think that, I don't know. I mean, I say that, but the same 5 teams have won and won. I don't know. I'm going to reserve judgment. I think y'all can. I also don't want to open up a whole new conversation topic here, but I almost wonder, do you think that Saudi group will invest in the area also? Tourism, things to do, build up.
They already are.
Make it more of an attractive place to be.
They already are. They've purchased a plot of land.
Because that's a huge thing with Enoch, with Tottenham in London. Like, they invested in the area, and it's really, it's gentrified the area. Say what you will for that, but, like, it's brought just kind of more
attractiveness. Yeah.
life.
Yeah, and they already have. They purchased Strawberry Place, which is like adjacent to the stadium. With people aren't sure if it's going to be for a fan zone. People aren't sure if it's going to be for a stadium expansion. But like they're already purchasing up stuff in the area to
I'm
add.
sure they'll build hotels.
Yeah,
and
to
things
just
like
add
that.
to the whole experience. They're certainly doing that. I think the first thing is the training ground. Like imagine if they did somehow.
It's like a local YMCA.
Imagine if they did
baby.
purchase Neymar somehow in January, and Neymar pulls up and I just pictured him turn right around, be like, I thought they had Saudi money. This ain't Saudi
that video
money.
of Trippier, that video of Trippier walking up to y'all's training complex was like cool, but it was also just
sad. It was sad. I mean,
yeah.
3 years ago they were taking ice baths in kiddie pools. They were taking ice baths in garbage bins. Like I'm not. This isn't
like we did after high school football.
That's not right. This isn't an exaggeration. This is the top flight of English football. One of the more long-term.
But that's what you love about it. You know, you got
You do, but you don't when it's your own club and you're supposed to be like.
Right. Yeah.
Big.
You don't love it when it's your own club, but you love seeing
if it's Wrexham. If I'm watching Welcome to Wrexham and I see guys ice bathing in a kiddie pool, I go, "Oh, that's so cool." When you see a Premier League team do it, you're like, "Oh my god, that's so embarrassing." I saw single A baseball teams with better facilities. Like it's bad. So there will certainly be non-stadium, non-player investments, and they've already started. And I think it'll go a long way. But I just. Maybe I'm scarred by Detroit sports never being able to get over that hump anymore, especially as money has taken over sports so much. I'm just skeptical,
especially this sport.
Yeah, I'm just really skeptical to see it translate to a Champions League for Newcastle, but Premier League championship, I'll be disappointed if I don't see one before I'm 40. I got 11 years, or I'm going to be pissed.
Guys, this is obviously a developing story. Newcastle is here to stay. We will talk about this much more. I hope that gives you all a good idea of what's kind of happening at really the forefront of this money splashing in soccer. You saw it, like we mentioned, with City and PSG, but in the modern era of soccer, I'd say 2016 and newer, Newcastle's really the first big experiment, I think, with all this, and it will be interesting to see. I would say I'm excited for you, Dylan, but I'm not, because I know it's going to be at the expense of my club, unless I don't even know who could buy us.
Yeah, because Bezos is buying the Falcons now or something, so there goes the Amazon money for you. Well, it's not official. That's the latest.
We've still got Google in the works and some other whatever, but that's an hour on Newcastle, and I hope, Dylan, I hope you had fun talking about your club for an hour today. I know you did. So we appreciate you guys listening. As always, make sure to like, subscribe, share, follow, comment, duet, and stitch. Boom!
Up the mags, baby. Let's go.
Up the mags. We'll talk to y'all later.